Russian efforts to halt Ukrainian infiltration. What steps should be taken if it becomes clear that no side in the Ukraine conflict can win the war militarily? To quote French President Emmanuel Macron, "It must also envisage non-confrontation with Russia and rebuild a sustainable balance of power." Macron's statements were panned by many political analysts, who called them unrealistic and naive. The counterargument goes even further, arguing that Ukraine should be given the tools it needs to win the war and paralyze the Russian military, making it impossible for Russia to threaten its neighbors in the near future. In an interview with The Washington Post, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky flatly dismissed the idea of dialogue with Russia, saying, "I think there is no point in negotiating with Russian President Vladimir Putin." The American political analyst Kyle Haynes, a professor of political science at Purdue University and a non-resident fellow at the Defense Priorities Foundation, posed the question, "But what will happen if it turns out that complete victory cannot be achieved militarily?" in a report published in the American National Interest magazine. What if the only other option is a bloody stalemate that won't end until negotiations are over? To avoid rewarding Russian aggression, Haynes believes that negotiations should be limited in scope given the widespread distaste for them. According to him, this throws off the balance of power. When negotiating with Russia, the United States and its allies should avoid taking a narrow approach and instead aim for the broadest possible framework. In the short term, this would increase Western influence as a result of Russian weakness, and in the long run, it could help bring about peace by allowing Vladimir Putin to claim a victory for someone in Russia who is not Ukrainian. War, according to Haynes, had wreaked havoc on Russia. While its economy has proven surprisingly resilient in the face of sanctions, it is still declining as a result of international divestment and domestic corruption. The widespread departure of educated young Russians also contributes to these trends. Haynes assured them that the tragedy was entirely of Russia's own making. The West can benefit from this as well. Looking at the final negotiations with Russia from a bird's-eye view will yield many benefits. To begin, the current state of Russia is its lowest in decades. This opens up huge spheres of influence for Ukraine, the US, and the West. This massive but fleeting advantage can be maximized by taking advantage of the chance to negotiate on the broadest possible terms. Negotiating now would mean exploiting Russia's enormous weakness rather than rewarding it. Although ensuring the safety of the Ukrainian people is crucial, the United States would be well served by using its influence to help create a more robust and secure security structure in the region as a whole. Second, there may be substantial benefits to ending the conflict in Ukraine through these negotiations if they cover a broader range of issues. At the moment, it appears that neither Kiev nor Moscow is willing to make any territorial concessions. A long-term frozen conflict that benefits no one is the result of a military failure to achieve a decisive victory. Washington and NATO could provide incentives to make peace with Russia more appealing through the broader negotiations, relieving pressure from Ukraine to take the initiative. Haynes assured them that this wiggle room would not pose a significant threat to Western security, as Russia's current weakness would allow for it. And when bargaining with similar businesses, even a marginal advantage can make all the difference. When negotiating with a weaker party, however, you have more room to maneuver without giving up anything that could prove decisive. A stable regional order can be pursued with greater leeway and at lower risk. In other words, Haynes is suggesting that the United States and its allies give Russia more than it deserves, or even what its strength warrants, in exchange for a significant Russian withdrawal from Ukraine. The expansion of NATO is one possible example. Given Russia's brazen and unjustified aggression, this appears immoral. Preaching in the face of battlefield realities, however, can be risky and counterproductive in the world of might makes right international politics. And given the current low probability of NATO expansion beyond Finland and Sweden, such concessions wouldn't amount to much anyway. That concessions would reward Russia for its outrageous behavior and embolden its aggression elsewhere, as pointed out by analyst Kyle Haynes, is the most important and realistic worry. Russia will get back a lot less for its efforts than it spent on this war. The war has been devastating for Russia, and the United States would be wise to consider holding broad-scale talks with the country. Russia will be unable to extract as many concessions from negotiations while in a weakened position, increasing the negative consequences of its aggressive actions. Hines emphasized that Russia has a significant voice in the sustainability of any European security system, whether the West likes it or not. Therefore, Macron was mostly correct. The only way to further weaken Russia, but bring it closer to China, and ensure that whatever capabilities Moscow can acquire will be directed against the West, is to take a punitive approach that does not take into account Russia's place in the regional system. The prospects for a lasting and stable regional order improve if peace is accepted by Russia. An opportunity for such stability may arise during the ongoing renegotiation of the regional order as a whole. This can be done at a significantly reduced cost thanks to Russia's temporary weakness. Hines concluded his analysis by arguing that the United States, its allies, and Ukraine have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create a regional security system that is highly advantageous to all parties involved, including Russia, because of Russia's weakness. If an opportunity presents itself, we must be ready to seize it, he said.